right, what's up? What's up? What's up? So today, for my book, for my actual uh, series, what I've learned from reading this book is going to be this book right here. It's The Science of Self. May God, Man, God, and the Mathematical Language of Nature, and it's volume one, and it's by these individuals right here: Supreme Understanding and CBS A Life Allah. I hope I said that right. If not, I'm sorry about that. But what's so interesting about this book was it has a lot. First of all, it has a lot of information in there. It has a lot of information. So what I would recommend is that everybody who has the opportunity, get the book. It's a good book. I enjoyed it. It's a lot of information. Like I said, I can't go over everything, but of course, what I can do is go over some of the tabs that I have. A lot of it requires reading a lot of chapters, like I always say. And the reason why is because there's a lot of stuff that I need to go over. So today's book that I'm going to go over is this one. And after I get off of here, I'll then go back and read some of this stuff, and then of course share it later on. So let's see. Let's go to the first tab. See. And I gotta warn you, if you buy books from this author, you gotta be very, very understanding that there's gonna be certain chosen words that are gonna be used. And I don't mean anything like crazy out of hand. I'm just saying like curse words and stuff like that that you don't usually see too much in books. But you would definitely see some of that in some of his books. He just keeps it, I guess, pretty much the same how he would be in person. I've met a lot of authors throughout my time. A lot of people who have PhDs and multiple degrees, um, and all kinds of stuff. And I can tell you that they're no different than the people hanging on the corner store. Basically, I'm just gonna keep it that simple. I went to conventions and conferences for, like Bigfoot and ancient aliens and, pyramids and scientific stuff and all kinds of stuff. And every single one of them is the same. Every single group of them people are exactly the same. So, um, and I bring that up because, people have some kind of, idea that they want somebody else to be perfect, but forgets all the flaws that they have in themselves, right? Uh, Reading his books is just, you just got to be able to read it, process it, and move on from it. If you get too emotional about it, you'll probably stop within, sometimes some of these within the first few chapters. So the first tab that I got marked up on here is this is what he actually says, and it's actually interesting that I marked it up too. Just noticed it. It says, this is not a light read. This is heavy and deep. If you've never read a book that deals with science or history before, you have to get ready for this book. And unfortunately, some of the stuff circulating as science and history in our communities is written for people who will believe anything. And that's in parentheses. He says, we often suggest that people read our earlier texts, specifically How to Hustle and Win and Knowledge of Self, before tackling our other books. In this case, that's not a suggestion. Don't dive into this water unprepared, not to insult your intelligence, but we've also included a breakdown of how to read a book in the appendix simply because it's an excellent read guide to making sense of difficult literature. So what I'm so basically, if you want to understand how to read a book, if you don't know how to read a book, and plus, yeah, and there is techniques on how to read books too. But I think that's a good promotion to get other people to read this book, because if you bought this book and you like it, you're gonna be like, oh, let me go to the back, let me go back to the front and see where those other books he has. So yeah, that's a good promotion. So this is something that I like about this individual. Dr. Supreme Understanding. That's not his real name. He's I'll get into exactly who he is later on, because it'll make more sense when I go over those books, because the next few books are his anyway. And this is volume one. And you don't really get this that kind of from this book to the other ones. You can definitely tell the difference in his presentation. But the reason why I say I will talk about him later on is because in the next video actually is going to be another one of his books. I think like the next three or four or five of them are, and it's because there's a certain way that he puts things in his books, and there's a certain group of individuals that do the same thing that he does. And I will get into it, and it'll make sense because he actually explains it in his books. So it'll be easier if I just read, exactly what he said. But one thing he does say in his books, he always says, do your own research. I have a tab right here where he says that. He says it himself. We left a lot of questions unanswered. Our goal isn't to fill your head with facts, but to show you the process by which things came to be, while also showing you that this process must occur with you on a daily basis. A major part of this process is the initial stage, the acquiring of knowledge. You can speculate all you want, but it isn't knowledge until you've researched it, investigated, and did some evaluation to make sure the information is sound. And that's something that I like to do. I like when somebody tells me something and I never heard it before. I'm going to take it, process it, and then I'm going to go do my research on it. Then I'm going to compare what I've learned from doing my research on it versus what I already know. Then I'm going to come up with my own, basis in the middle ground of, okay, what could be possibly right, what couldn't possibly be right. It's on, what exaggerations that somebody might try to implement in their ideas. That's why when I have a lot of discussions, and a lot of times most of the people who block me or dislike me or anything like that, it's because I give them a piece of information that they have never heard before, or they may have heard it but they don't agree with it, right? And my thing is this, first of all, this is not my professional field. So I go to the people who are professionals in this, and I use their information to better make sense of stuff. So I give you an example. A lot of people are talking about Atlantis right now. Well, I don't need to read anybody's stuff except what came from Plato. Everybody else's stuff doesn't mean nothing to me at all. I get the whole idea of having visions. I get the whole idea of having, hypnotists find past lives, and I understand all that stuff. I'm okay with that. I'm not downing that. What I'm saying is that if I want to go to the actual first written down source about it, I would go to Plato, and that's it. Nobody else. Everybody else, they can say whatever they want to say. They can say whatever visions they had, this, that, and the third, blah, 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 blah. If that's the case, then there's a lot of questions that I would have to ask them on why they think it was Atlantis. Did they come out their word and say yes, Atlantis, or is that just a word that's used in our head that people know? Uh, so when it comes up to doing my own research, what I like to do is I like to read the information for myself. And I know that I'm only doing tabs and reading what I found interesting in these books from these tabs and stuff like that. That doesn't do any justice. This is just like watching a commercial before you go watch your movie that you say, hey, that seems pretty interesting. You know what I'm saying? When you got that commercial, that advertisement for that new movie or television show, they're giving you snippets of everything that may possibly be in that show. And within those snippets, you make your decision of whether you want to go watch it or not. Right? It's not, you don't watch the whole thing and be like, oh, I want to go watch it. You know what I'm saying? You watch parts of it and you're like, yo, I want to go watch that, so you go watch it. The same thing that I do with these books. I always say this: just because I read something doesn't mean that I think it's all facts and actual right information. I just find it interesting. That's it. That's all that there's no rhyme and reason to it. I pick and choose what is interesting to me. There's nothing else that goes more into it than that. That's it. There's no reason behind it. I just say, oh, that's pretty interesting. Let me put a tab there, and I'll put a tab there. Sometimes I'll read something interesting and be like, I already read that like 50 times already. I don't need to put a tab on it. So I don't need to. So and like I said, there's no rhyme and reason. So what every video that I've done on every book that I've shared so far, all it was basically, hey, that's interesting to me. And there's so many different reasons why that's interesting to me. I've heard somebody talk about it and I was like, ooh, I heard somebody just talking about this. Let me put this tab here so when I go over it, I can talk about it. Or I read something about this in a different book and I know exactly what book it is. So now I can go ahead and compare two books that I have. Or I watched it in a television show recently and seen it, and I was like, oh, I just seen that in a television show. This is interesting. There's no one particular reason why I do these tabs. I just do them because it's just interesting. So me and right now we got what 12 people in here watching right now. Me and 12 other people right now. If we read this book, we would all find something interesting to ourselves. And some of it may be the same exact thing, and some of it wouldn't be. There are a lot of sentences and a lot of paragraphs in here. So like I said, do your own research. That's why if I say something like the only reason, honestly, I'll be honest with you because I've been having people say this to me lately, and I'm not sure if it's out of jealousy or being upset about something. But uh, a lot of people. I had two messages come through my DMs yesterday, and one of them was saying that you need to do more research, and then I had one other person saying that what was it that just because I read books thinks I know everything. No, that okay. So first of all, I do a lot of research. That's obvious. I have a series on my website, on my YouTube, on what I've learned from reading these books. I have a actual list of all the books that I've read or own, I should say, that I own personally on my website, because I don't only just do videos. I have my website. Actually, I've spent more time updating my website than I do anything else, only because of the simple fact is because that's where I started at. And you can see on my X account and Facebook account and some other social medias that mainly my X, because that's where I share everything at now, is on my X account. You can literally see where I share. Not only do I have this series on my YouTube channel, what I've learned from reading this book, I literally do the same thing on X, just in word form. That's it. I just say, hey, this is what I've learned from reading this book. And then I give a little idea of what I feel or ask questions about it. And boom, that's it. So I cover my bases on both sides. So it's obvious that I do a lot of research. I mean, that's obvious. And I don't think I know it all. I just know a lot. And I feel like I know a lot more than most average people, even more people who are supposedly professionals in their field. And I don't mean that with any disrespect. It's just that I just read a lot of people's stuff. I literally have a whole set of encyclopedias right over here. My library's in the living room. I literally have books from all kinds of stuff. Yes, I specialize in, the Sumerians and religion and mythology and stuff like that. But I read all kinds of conspiracy type books. I read UFO books. I read, cryptid type books, scientific books, alchemy books, chakra books, stones. I mean, I read all kinds of different books. I have different Masons. And I'm not talking about Freemasonry. I'm talking about like Masons as far as building blocks and pyramids and stuff like that. Concrete. I mean, I literally have a whole list on my on my YouTube channel and Rumble account and Spotify. So everything's on there. So it's obvious that I only share what I've read. So that was this saying all of that is the reason why I found this interesting on that tab, was do your own research, because he's telling people do your own research. Now, my question is if somebody comes up to you with some research that goes against what you say, what do you do with your old research or with the new research that you have? That's the only thing, because anybody can sit here and say do your own research. Yeah, you can do your own research all day, but if you're not doing your own research to better yourself, and you're only doing it just to say you did it, then what good are you doing? But the next tab is he says, what is science? So there's a lot of questions on what is science. What I like to do, and there's a lot of people, been a couple of people talking about what's science and what's not science and stuff like that. First of all right, that's a stupid argument. I'm gonna say it's a stupid argument, because whether it's science or not, what is your next argument after that? What does that do to you in your arguments in the place? If somebody says one thing is science and you say it's not science, what does that do? What difference does that make? Does that change anything that's going on? And if you say, well, because some people will hold their gatekeeping information and this, that, and the third, well, let me ask you, how many books have you read this year then? Because a lot of this information is in older books. I don't even know how to even explain that on the level of you having to go back and just read. It's not hidden information, it ain't gatekeeping or nothing that. Um, so I always, my this is my thing. Look, you can say what science is and what it isn't. What I like to do personally is, instead of arguing with somebody about science, I'm going to go look up what the etymology word of it means. Why? And I've had somebody say this to me. They said, that's what it used to be. Yeah, that's what it used to be. But me being in the military, I was always told that you can add, you just can't take away. Okay, you can add to, you just can't take away from this. That was just something that I've always learned, because the taking away from something usually meant taking away safety. You can add to safety rules, you just can't take away from the safety rules. Okay, you just add to them. So I was always told that you, not just in military life either, but I used to work at Winn Dixie at a grocery store. You can always add, but just can't take away. And that was so many different ideas in that, like, you can add extra pennies into your register and be over your amount of money that you have, because you had 10, 15, 20 people didn't want pennies, so now you got 20 cents over your register. So you can add that to your till, I guess, or your register, and when you count out cash, you can be over. You just can't take away from that register. You just can't take no money away from there, because then you'll get fired, right? So you can always add. You just can't take away anything. But that's a little joke. But yeah, it's just so I always look up the etymology word, then I look up the definition. I have a dictionary right here. I have another dictionary right over there, and I have one in the living room. So, and I have one on my phone and my computer and everything else. So there's dictionaries everywhere. And depending on the definition or the dictionary that you use, you're going to get kind of some different wording on what a word means, right? So you get some basic, what might be the same, some of it may be just off. But right here, it actually says a tab. It says, "What is science?" And this is from Immanuel Kant. It's really in small letters. And it says, science is organized knowledge. Wisdom is organized life. Okay. And then that's just a quote from Immanuel Kant. And then it goes into what is science. Before we get any deeper into this book, we obviously need working definition of science. I like that, right? Because before you get into any arguments, before you're saying this ain't that and this ain't this, you have to give in, okay, before I say that this isn't science, let me explain what I believe science is first. This is what I believe, and this is the information that I'm using to come up with my idea. I'm not saying this because I have some emotional feelings towards it. I'm using what I can in my disposal. You know what I'm saying? So it says science from the Latin word scientia, meaning knowledge. Okay. Is both a noun and a verb. As a verb, it refers to the organized methodology of acquiring an objective body of information about different natural phenomena. This is important because, for one, it acknowledges there is a method to it. Not everything qualifies as real science, quotation marks, real science, quotation marks, which is why there are labels such as pseudoscience to classify all the other stuff people try to pass off. Second, it must be kept as objective as possible. Peer reviews, as well as the text of replicability, are required because some researchers or their funders are biased in one way or another. As a noun, science refers to the orderly structure of knowledge gained through a structure. Okay. Let's see. Of knowledge gained through a strict methodology. Under the umbrella of science, you have different categories such as natural, social, cognitive, formal, and applied science, which each have their own specific focus. Natural sciences search for the laws that govern the natural world using empirical and scientific methods. Social science uses the scientific method to study humans and in our societies. The focus of cognitive science is the mind, what it does and how it works. Applied sciences are what you get when you apply science to the physical world. Formal sciences, for example, mathematics, logic, statistics, theoretical, computer science, and etc., use formal systems to verify and generate knowledge. Then it says on the bottom by J. Lear, I guess, and it's really in small print. It says science is knowledge and wisdom in tandem. Observation and experiment study and okay, I can't even read it. It's really small print and I ain't got no glasses right now, so I ain't even gonna try to focus on that. But he gave out his understanding of science, right? And that can be worded so many different ways. I mean, pick your poison, right? But science, to me, what I understand about science is basically what the one word that I want to tell you that everybody always hears me say is knowledge. Because right here it says science from the Latin word scientia, meaning knowledge. So that's all it. So that's it. So and you can't take that away. You can't take that away from today. You can't say, well, it's 2026. Science no longer means knowledge. Can't do that. You can add to it, but you can't take away. Here it talks about what is the scientific method. In early indigenous cultures, knowledge was passed in oral tradition. Indigenous knowledge, sometimes called traditional knowledge or traditional ecological knowledge, TEK, is both a holistic understanding of the relationship between living things as well as a way of life. In fact, science is but a small part of indigenous knowledge. It is learned by doing and experiencing and makes use of empirical data as well as what is considered supernatural. Nowadays, some natives have had some exposure to non-native values, institutions, and patterns of thought. In addition, they don't just use what has been passed down to them, they live and experience life on their own, which further allows them to validate or discard traditional knowledge. Then it says, where does the scientific method come from? It's now known as the Western scientific method, but this approach, as well as empiricism in general, has its roots among original people. In knowledge, belief in witchcraft, analytic experiments, in African philosophy, Barry Halland and J.O. Sodepo describe how the Yoruba have a tradition of empiricisms that distinguishes knowledge from belief. They grade knowledge by varying degrees of truth or certainty, with the highest knowledge being what one has first hand experience of. That is, when you lack first hand experience, your knowledge comes with some of degrees of Ighagbato. So that's pretty interesting right there. So really interesting. Let's see. Let's go to the next tab. Let's see. The Western scientific tradition. The philosophical arm behind the scientific tradition, Western scientific tradition, WST, declares that Europeans are the founders and greatest historical proponents of science. This is part of a larger package deal of indoctrination that says all good things come from Europe. Black and brown scholars, since at least the 1800s, have critiqued various. Let's switch pages. Manifestations of this campaign, which finds its way into the standard telling of history, religion, sociology, psychology, and just about any other school of thought you can imagine. So that's interesting. Always goes back to those arguments, right? No matter what, there's no reason to get into it because we already know what's more on it. All right, so the next one is a did you know? Shamans are individuals who guide indigenous societies with wisdom that is said to come from another realm. Books like Native Science, Natural Laws of Interdependence by Dr. Gregory Kajet and Blackfoot Physics, A Journey into Native American World View by theoretical physicist Dr. F. David Peat, explore the indigenous shamans' forays into the world of quantum theory long before Heisenberg and Schrodinger ever stepped foot in a laboratory. Could the shaman, in fact, be seeing life through the quantum lens? In Volume 3, we explore the world of shaman and what these men knew long before modern Western science. So, Volume 3 is basically his next book. Let's go to the next tab. Let's see. So this is not going to be a long one. This is actually going to be short because it's not that many. Well, there are a lot of tabs. Just I got to read a lot of chapters. So here it says, why no two snowflakes are alike. We've all heard that no two snowflakes are alike because they're all so intricately complex. But if that's so, how do they grow so symmetrically in 6 different directions at the same time? Could the same non-local control element that governs the complex patterns of seashells be what orders the radial growth of the snowflakes? Scientists still can't explain the process by which this happens. Perhaps it's something organic again. After all, snowflakes aren't entirely inorganic. They're actually just ice crystallized around bacteria from the sea. Yep, there's life in there. Perhaps we're getting somewhere. So I guess I wanted to know that bacteria from around the sea. That's where snowflakes. All right, so the next one is an introduction to quantum mechanics. Quantum mechanics, also referred to as quantum physics or quantum theory, is the study of physics at the level of an individual atoms and subatomic particles like electrons, photons, protons, and neutrinos. As Richard Feynman put it, the behavior and movement of particles on this level is unlike anything else we witness in everyday life. This type of behavior required a whole new explanation, a new theory. Hence, the name quantum theory, to explain the quantum realm. Well, quantum realm, wouldn't humans be fitting that idea? Because you look at some of these humans, there's going to be some things you ain't going to normally see that you think you'll see. Then it talks about as above, so below. It says in Prometheus Rising, Robert Anton Wilson writes, consider the human brain a kind of a biocomputer, an electrocolloidal computer, as distinct from the electronic or solid state computers which exist outside our heads. The brain appears to be made up of matter in electrocolloidal suspension, protoplasm, colloids are pulled together toward a condition of gel by their surface tensions. This is because surface tensions pull all glue-like substances together. Colloids are also conversely pushed apart toward a condition of so by their electrical charges. This is because their electrical charges are similar, and similar electrical charges always repel each other. In the equilibrium between gel and sol, the colloidal suspension maintains its continuity and life continues. Well, I guess I got that. I just wanted to know that because it says above and as above and below. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Let me tap this up and let me read it. Then it talks okay, the next tab is just pictures. And I would let's see. All right, so here's another did you know? Not only do women sync with the moon when women are closely associated living together under one roof, for example, their menstrual cycles also synchronize with each other. Association with males also affects the menstrual cycle, generally shortening and regularizing them to increase fertility. So there's a lot of bones out there, like I think it's called the Ishango bone, Ishango, Ishango, Ishango bone. Yeah, I think that's the one. It actually is like like an old mathematical equation that lines up with the moon and women's menstrual cycles. That's why I always talk about how women were the first mathematics, or mathematicians, I should say. But if life originated on Earth, it had less than a billion years to do so, from 4.35 billion to 3.5 billion years ago. The oldest fossils so far are known as stromatolites and are dated at 3.5 million years, 3.5 billion years old. So let me make sure I said this right, because I probably messed it up, because like I said, I ain't got my glasses on. But if life originated on Earth, it had less than a billion years, 4.35 billion to 3.5 billion years to do so. The oldest fossils so far are known as stromatolites and are dated at 3.5 billion years old. If we work backwards and assume that still simpler life and pre-life chemical evolution preceded these fossils, the advent of life on Earth must be pushed back much further to allow time for gestation. Not to mention the possibility that our planet may have been sterilized by asteroid bombardments, one of more times, with life springing forth twice or even several times before 3.5 billion years ago. Okay, that's pretty interesting. Let's see. Let's go to the next. We're talking about something I was just looking at. All right. Before DNA, there was RNA. DNA is a genetic code. Everything living today has DNA. Yet before DNA, there was a code known as RNA. RNA, and I'm going to try to say, and I'm probably messed it up. Ribonucleic acid is the predecessor to both DNA and protein. All right. Yet like having a yet like a living fossil, RNA still lives in us as RNA. So it's lowercase r and then capital RNA, RNA, allowing us to study its properties. Because RNA can both store information like DNA and act as an enzyme like proteins, it may have provided another one of the seeds of early life. This is because life requires enzymatic properties such as the ability to reproduce or self-duplicate and to catalyze the chemical reactions needed to form proteins. RNA did all those things and did them well enough to produce the first living reproducing organisms. RNA would also need to serve as an information storage system able to reproduce from memory, so to speak. But until DNA took this job, the use of RNA as an information storage center consumed a great deal of energy and was highly inaccurate or mutation prone. This wouldn't work for modern life, but it allowed for primitive life to have the massive variety needed to produce at least one surviving line of descendants in their midst of the millions of failed dead ends. Eventually, DNA, through the greater chemical stability, took over the role of data storage, while protein took over the job of catalyzing the needed chemical reactions. In a sense, DNA became the brain and protein the body. Okay. So this is actually interesting too. It says RNA was activated by the sun. It says like DNA, there are 4 amino acids required for RNA. They are adenine, cytosine, guanine, and uracil. I probably messed that up, but don't. I know I messed that up. We know that Earth was peppered with all kinds of organic matter in its formative years, including at least one of those 4 amino acids, uracil. But while scientists took for the other 3 in space, studies have proven that heating a simple terrestrial chemical known as formamide, which may also be found in space in a mineral stew, creates most of the ingredients for RNA. But for namamide is missing something, guanine. The guanine, no RNA. According to a new study, however, it takes UV ray to activate guanine in the formaldehyde brew. So yeah, this just goes on to the scientific side of it that I ain't even gonna try to talk about because I don't really understand it. But what I am going to do is after I get off of here, I'm definitely gonna look into more of RNA because I do talk about DNA a lot. So I need to go back and do some more research on RNA and find some stuff on what I need to find on there. Uh, by 600 million years ago, animals still didn't move around much. Animal movement may have started around this time with, and it says, Cnidarians, probably prompted by the environmental changes mentioned above. Cnidarians were the first animals with the ability to move freely due to the evolution of nerves and muscles. And then period 438 million to 410 million years ago, you have the Silurian period, and this is the first air-breathing animal, the scorpion. So the scorpion is actually the first air-breathing animal, and it goes back 438 million to 410 million. That's pretty interesting. Word, that's actually interesting. All right, last 2 tabs. Let's see. All right, it says why we don't all look alike. Let's see. Inasmuch as we find the same hieroglyphic sign symbols, etc., in various parts of the world, also that the earliest race of beings were Negroid, it is but natural to believe that at one time these were universal and that their birthplace must have had one common center, which must have been Africa. Throughout the world, where the ossified remains of earliest man have been found, we find the same type, which is Negroid. This is proved by the shape of the bones, the flattened tibia, and the shape of the skull, etc., and so on. And the long forearm with wide space between the 2 forearm bones, ulna and radius, the discussion of which would be outside this work. All right, yeah, okay. And then a quick note on studying alien civilization. Now, this is actually interesting because this guy does not like Ancient Aliens. He doesn't like Giorgio Tsoukalos. He doesn't like Billy Carson. He really doesn't like Billy Carson for a whole separate thing besides just the ancient alien part. But and you can tell what I mean if you read his books. But it says if you're interested in life on other planets, first realize there are some serious limitations to how much you can find out. Even with the wealth of information and misinformation that's currently out there, by comparison, how much do you know about other countries and cultures on this planet? Alien just means foreign. So there may be a lot of human culture that are entirely alien to you. And there's no reason you should be able to tell us more about Planet X than Mexico. I gotta read that again because this is funny. All right, it says by comparison, how much do you know about other countries and cultures on this planet? Alien just means foreign, so there may be a lot of human cultures that are entirely alien to you, and there's no reason you should be able to tell us more about Planet X than Mexico. Okay. Matter of fact, how well do you know your neighbors? Somebody lives right next door, right? And in one sense, man himself is part of extraterrestrial. If you consider the story of the origins of life, the carbon rich meteorite that impregnated the earth with the life about 4 billion years ago is the closest we can get to saying that we came here from outer space. I agree with that a lot. Like, that's probably like maybe our original origins of ourselves came from a meteorite that had some type of bacteria or whatever, right? I can believe that. It might not have been a voyage from the planet Krypton, but the seeds of life and us did in part start in the heavens above. Well, perhaps instead of heavens, we should say black interstellar cloud nebula, because otherwise people might think we're talking about something religious. Okay. Yet, speaking of religion, there is a notable verse in Genesis that describes the sons of God mating with the daughters of men. If Genesis is a book of genetics, as the name implies, this could be interpreted as the meaning between the celestial and terrestrial elements that eventually begat all life on earth. You know why it says, now that's so interesting to me, because I always talk about how the Anuna / the Anunnaki never came from planet Nibiru. They came from the depths of the seas. That's why you have all these guys, fish suits and all this other stuff. But that was the end of it. This is the book right here, Science of Self, Man, God, and in the mathematical language of nature. I appreciate everybody for coming in and listening. Like I said, I don't do this for any other reason but just because I love history and I just love sharing stuff. And this is just it's a hobby of mine. I enjoy doing this, and I have 2 music videos that I'm about to present / music videos, entertainment, historical videos that I'm going to be publishing. I just have fun with this stuff. I don't take this stuff too serious. I know how social media works. I mean, I grew up on social media. I mean, before it even was social media, I had MySpace. I mean, some of y'all know that's the old stuff. So I know how social media is, and I know how people are as general when it comes to ego. A lot of people feel like they have to be right about everything, and a lot of people got to feel like they're the top dog and this and that. I'm living comfortably. I'm living comfortably. Anything more than this would be luxury. And what I feel like what I have is luxury. So what I'm saying is that I don't do this to make any type of profit or gain from it. It's just something I enjoy doing. I put more money into this than I've done with any of my other hobbies. I used to work on cars and soup up my cars and my trucks and stuff like that. I used to play video games all the time. When GTA 6 comes out, I'm going to be playing GTA 6 a lot. I'm going to be streaming it. I love reading. It's getting to the point now that I need to just focus on one subject, and I have one in mind, and something might be happening in the next 6 to 8 months where I will be revealing why I'm going to be on one subject. Um, but it's I just enjoy, like, I enjoy doing this. This is fun. It helps me. Um, you know, most of you guys already know I have a brain injury from being wounded in combat, so I don't sleep that much. So I like to create things, just like anybody does. You know, you once you find something that you're good at, you're going to do it all the time, like how I do it. Like, you know, I have my own website, rebirthoftheword.com. I'm always constantly writing articles. I'm constantly making videos. I'm constantly going live. I'm constantly having podcast discussions with people. So, and it's just a one man show, just me. I do it all. I do the editing, I do the promotion, I do the emailings for the conversations. Everything that happens is on my own. No secretaries, no no sponsors, no you know uh, inner circles where, you know, because there's a lot of, in this field there's a lot of people who's in a circle, right? And they pretty much say the same thing. I can tell you right now, a lot of them will say they don't like drama, but hang out with the same exact people who cause the drama. The problem is that the person that causes the drama is doing it to people who don't want any drama. But then when somebody like me come along who kind of enjoys that kind of interaction, sometimes you know, it's, oh, rebirth, you're a problem, or this, that, and the third. I'm just like, yo, buddy, what was your buddy just doing like 2 seconds ago? And so in this whole field, there's a whole group of individuals who, it's just like high school. Like these people are like 40 years old. I'm 42, and they treat this like, and there's actually some of them 50, 60 years old, and treat this like high school. Like, who sits at the cool tables club? Like, who fucking cares about that? You know, who cares about the cool table uh, club, whatever, right? So everything that I do is just all fun. It's all fun for me. You know, I've been doing this for years. I've been having podcast discussions with people for many years, way before it started. And I can tell you right now, it just recently just got big. Like, I've been doing this for almost 6 years now. Uh, and matter of fact, some of the people that are doing their discussions now are doing the same discussions that I did with people back in the past. And I can tell you that some of that stuff that a lot of people talked about, they're not changing, or they haven't updated their information. You can see through my earliest videos till now, you can see how, like I said, how I had to actually come out and say, hey, I just learned this. I was just talking about this 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. I got some new information, compared my studies, and this is with the new and improved version of it. So, like I said, all this is just fun to me. I'm gonna keep doing it until the last breath that I have on this planet. I'm just keep going and going. I know for a fact I'm not going to go through every single book that I own. I have a lot of books, a lot of books, and there's not enough time in the day for me to do one. I would have to do multiple books a day just for like 2 or 3 years just to get through all my books that I want, and that's not happening. And I'm not going to make this like a job or a work, because this is my hobby and this is just fun. So if there's any particular books that you uh, are into, send me your books uh, in the comments. I'll go get a copy of it, read it, and do a video on it. Or you can go to my website, rebirthoftheword.com, go to the Knowledge is Power tab. On that tab, I'm constantly updating that tab with new books and stuff like that. I think I have about 500 books on that book in that tab, or on my website. I have at least 500 books in there. Yeah, I have at least 500 books in there. On my website, you can pick any of those 500 books that I have in there and say, hey, I want you to go over these books, or hey, I want you to go over this book, and I'll go over it, because like I said, I'm not going to have time to go over every single book. So if you want, go to my website, rebirthoftheword.com, Knowledge is Power tab. You'll see I have about 500 books in there. Plus, I have some of the courses that I've taken, some of the peer-reviewed articles that I felt interesting and updated. and all kinds of stuff. And then on that website, you can see all the articles that I wrote and all kinds of other stuff that I've done. So yeah, just check that out. And like I said, if there's a particular book that you want me to go over, just go on that list, look at it, see if I already have that book, and I'll just go over it and do it. Or you can go to my YouTube channel, rebirthoftheword.com, or Rebirth of the Word 7099, Rebirth of the Word 7099. Yeah. And I have a playlist on there, what I've learned from reading this book playlist on my YouTube channel. So just like with this book, what I did with hair, I did the same thing with other books. I have a few books on there. So yeah, I'm going to do another book probably, what's today, Tuesday? No, I have a discussion tomorrow. Let's see if I have one on Friday. All right. So, all right. Yeah. So I'll probably do one again, probably at night. So if you ever miss any of these and you just need something to listen to for about an hour on your way to work and driving, or if you're semi truck driving and you like history and you don't get the chance to read a lot of books, but you want some ideas and stuff like that, hey, this is the perfect website, perfect streaming channel that you can get. Like I always say, y'all always say this, knowledge is power. I appreciate everybody for coming out. I'm about to go ahead and head to the store. Until next time, y'all be easy, and we're going to do this again in the next few days, probably next week on Monday.
Got a little hype now, can I let it die down? I remember days in the trench. Time to go hard in, time to go all in, time to give my all to this shit. Panamera maxed out, first class flights out Atlantic to Pacific, yeah, it's lit.